Welcome back, episode 12. Happy New Year. We are Tuesday, January 2nd. We are less than a week away from the ETF, I believe. And Bitcoin's at 45,000. So I want to go over in this episode really where I think the opportunity is for Bitcoin and where the opportunity isn't for some of these other altcoins. So I want to talk a little bit about what makes Bitcoin so unique relative to every other story. And then I'd like to talk a little bit about why I still remain very, very bullish on this ETF coming out as the primary driver for a huge bull market in Bitcoin over the next 2 years. So let's stop and go think back to 2009 and what Satoshi came up with. And I put this in a tweet on X, and I said, the core idea of Bitcoin is finiteness. And I really think this is accurate because there were cryptographic systems before Bitcoin. There were RPOW from Hal Finney, and before that, BitGold from Nick Szabo, and all kinds of things, right? So there's ways of securing a peer-to-peer payment between people using some form of cryptocurrency, really going back even further than that. But what Satoshi had, which was completely unique and really was Satoshi's invention, is this idea of what if the entire money supply for this new money was completely finite? Now, that is a Satoshi idea. That doesn't go back to anybody else. And pulling off that idea was, first, pulling it off mathematically is very difficult because you have to have miners get paid. You have to have a system where they're getting paid less and less as time goes by. So you have the halvening, basically. And so you get this series of payments that basically sum up to 21 million, right? So that's the first thing. Then you have to make sure that the mining rewards get reduced as people build more efficient miners, and or they may allocate more money to mining, and so that's the difficulty adjustment. So there's all kinds of technical reasons why this was a really interesting thing, but even more than that, if you had said to me or to anybody else in 2009, 2010 that Bitcoin, this system of finite money, would have any chance of supplanting or even taking a leading role against infinite money that's printed by companies, I think I would have said no, and I think most people would have said that there's really no shot. And so it's really only over the last 3, 4, 5 years that we've sort of seen that maybe Bitcoin has this actual shot of doing this, and I now believe it does. So that's a very unique thing to Bitcoin. Now, there's been literally 10,000 other coins that have been created since Bitcoin, and some of them by very smart people, mathematicians, all kinds of people, right, have built these blockchains. But they've not been built with this idea of finiteness in mind. And an example is Ethereum. Ethereum started out with a crowd sale. Nobody's quite sure how many Ethereum coins there even are, and the amount is changing all the time. So a couple years ago, when Ethereum moved to a proof of stake from proof of work, they had a new distribution schedule that they just all of a sudden decided we're going to start burning tokens. Well, if they all of a sudden decided they can burn tokens, they can all of a sudden decide that they're going to issue tokens. So the supply is absolutely fluid. It's not hard-coded at all. Same with every one of these other coins, Solana, etc. They don't really have a philosophy of finite money supply, and they don't have it's not hard coded into the code, and they have people who can change the code. So they're really, in a very real sense, they're not money. So forget whether they're a security or not. They just do not have any chance of replacing the US dollar, the euro, the yen, and other major currencies. I just do not see Solana doing that ever. I don't see Ethereum doing that ever. So there's a fundamental difference between Bitcoin and these other currencies. And so with that in mind, let's take a quick look at some of these charts. So first one I'm going to do is just pull up the Bitcoin chart and see where we are. Not year to date, but really over the last 5 years. And really, it's very clear that Bitcoin now wants to make a run at new highs. I think most people on the street still think Bitcoin is damaged, it's completely down. They have no idea that it's come back from the dead to where it is right now. And I had dinner with a portfolio manager, family office manager last night, and yeah, I mean, crypto is not top of mind right now, and the only way it would get to be top of mind is if it's in an ETF. I mean, there's just absolutely no way that mainstream Wall Street right now is going to go out and buy coins on Coinbase. It's just not happening. So, having said that, people are very, very psychologically attuned to whenever something breaks its all-time high. And that's something where we're really looking like we might do that. Bitcoin here is just under 45,000. We only have 20,000 more points to go to get to an all-time high, and we could see that pretty quick. So, all right. So where is Ethereum on all this? Well, 2 days ago, Ethereum, Vitalik posted this updated roadmap for 2023, and it's exactly the opposite of Bitcoin. Instead of being this money that was set in stone 14 years ago, it is just this completely convoluted roadmap that looks almost undoable. Maybe it's doable. It seems like it's almost like a Rube Goldberg contraption in order to kind of fulfill this thing. And I would say the market's not really buying it. So, here's Ethereum relative to Bitcoin. Ethereum relative to Bitcoin has been just steadily going down all year. So I'm not bullish on Ethereum at all. They may have an Ethereum ETF. James Seifert of Bloomberg thinks that's happening. I'm not so sure it's going to happen, but regardless of whether it happens or not, I just think the story of Ethereum right now has some serious, serious problems. So let's talk instead about Solana. Well, Solana, I think, might have some serious issues with respect to actually being deemed a security. And as I mentioned, this is the initial token allocation for Solana. And there's, the team right off the top gets 20% of the entire token allocation for doing nothing, for just being there. Then 25% goes to the seed investors, whoever they are. Another one went to the founding sale. Sam Bankman-Fried is in one of those two quadrants. And then there's a validator sale, a strategic sale, and a public auction scale. And then there's the foundation that has some. So this is exactly the opposite of Bitcoin, where Satoshi never used one of his Bitcoin. He mined them because there was nobody else who wanted to mine them at the time, other than him and Hal Finney. Very few people were interested in this idea. And Solana is completely the opposite. Solana is, it looks to me like a security from where I'm sitting here. And, people are now, all of a sudden, that Bitcoin is starting to get back to all-time highs. They're all of a sudden now jumping into things like Solana, right? They think, oh, well, Solana might be a great thing. Now, here, so it was doing absolutely nothing until around the 14th of October. It was sitting around $20, where it had been more or less all year. And then really in the last 60 plus days, it just decided to, quintuple. So it went up really a lot. Now, the actual supply of this was up. If you look here, you go, well, it's still got a ways to go before it's all-time high, right? Because the all-time high is 240, and it's trading at 107. So surely it can get back to 240. But if you look in terms of the market cap, because there was a whole number of new Solana tokens issued, we're actually trading at a $50 billion market cap, which is only about 30% less than the sort of all-time high market cap. So, this seems like a disaster waiting to happen from my perspective. Not at all convinced of this, but this is kind of what you see in these kind of moments of euphoria for Bitcoin. It absolutely does nothing for a long time, and then it all of a sudden causes these altcoins to completely jump. Here's another one. This is a coin called Kaspa, and a couple people from Kaspa were like pinging my feed saying, "Hey Fred, have you heard of Kaspa?" And I'm like, "Sure, I've heard of Kaspa." And look what Kaspa done. It's done pretty good, and then all of a sudden it just completely went ballistic again, right around the same time, November 1st. So within 2 weeks of Solana going ballistic, Kaspa goes ballistic, okay? It's trading at a mere $2.5 billion, but nobody's using this blockchain. It's just purely just hype. And, but that's kind of where we are in this kind of thing. Another chain that I'm not really too bullish on is Cardano. And look at the movement of Cardano, right? So Cardano sort of doubled, and this is another $21 billion market cap. So the people buying these things aren't looking very carefully at what they're doing. They're not going beyond these charts. They're just, chart goes up, I buy. But let's take a quick look at some of these coins, right? From the activity level. So these coins, unlike Bitcoin, a lot of them are not trying to be money, right? They're trying just to be application layers for other apps. Well, we can see, thanks to dAppRadar, a little bit what's happening on blockchain, what kind of apps there are on blockchain. And, if you look here, Solana is number 12 in terms of apps. I mean, it has, total users are under 1 million. So you have 1 million users, $50 billion market cap. That ratio is insane for any kind of product. If you had an app that had 1 million users and you say, great, I have 1 million users for my app, I'd like to have a $50 billion market cap. People say you're nuts. And there's Phantom has way more than Solana, for example. So I don't want to get into the relative value of some of these chains because I think they're all kind of overpriced in my view. But the reality is none of these apps are really being used at this point in any significant quantity. Could that change? Yeah, sure, it could change, but it's not there now. So here are some of these apps that, and I guarantee you're not involved in any of these apps because these are some of the apps in the game space, for example, and you've got Farmer's World, basically like Farmville for blockchain, and it has 67,000 people playing this Farmville. So that's great. If you look at all categories of apps, you're going to see Uniswap is number 11. You have 78,000 people using Uniswap. So again, a relatively small number of users of these apps. And, not seeing a lot of Solana in this mix, not seeing any Cardano in this mix. I'm not seeing any Kaspa in this mix. So just a hodgepodge of sort of bad applications. And that's kind of the world of these apps. So, to reiterate, I'm not bullish on these other chains. I'm really much more interested at this point in Bitcoin itself. I can talk later at some point. I will talk down the road about ordinals, which I do find fairly interesting, because they're on Bitcoin. They're generating, half of Bitcoin transactions are ordinals at this point. But it's a controversial topic. I don't want to muddy the waters right now, because the main thing that's happening right now is this Bitcoin ETF, and it is the Bitcoin halving, and it is the rate cut, and the movement of Bitcoin as money is now starting to gain legs. And I think in the next couple months, we're going to see a major bull market in Bitcoin. So, what should you do in this case? What I've said at the beginning of last month is you should be all in right now, because this stuff can move very quickly, and we could be at $70,000 very quickly and never come back. We could be at $100,000 per Bitcoin and never come back. So it's up to you. If you're convinced of the finiteness of Bitcoin, if you're convinced that this is really, truly a significant thing where one Bitcoin could be more rare later on, very soon, potentially, than $1 million, well, I think you might want to get some Bitcoin pretty quickly. So I will leave it at that. And as always, if you have any comments or something, just hit me up on Twitter. I will try to respond to them. And have a great 2024, and I hope you guys are in Bitcoin. Thank you very much.